What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of my favorite sports team causing me irreparable emotional distress. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Game 3 of the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs between the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, I haven't made any standalone videos about the NBA playoffs so far. Life kind of gets in the way sometimes, and it's just also with it being the first couple of games for every series, there isn't really much for me to talk about. But this game in particular was absolute chaos from the beginning all the way to the final possession. So this was a must-win game for the Brooklyn Nets. Technically, it wasn't. Okay, they still have Game 4 on their home court, but no team has ever come back from being down 3-0 in any playoff series. And as much as I despise the Philadelphia 76ers, as much as I want to see them crash and burn, as much as I want to see Doc Rivers blow yet another series lead in the postseason, as much as I want to see them be upset in the first round by my favorite team without Kevin Durant, without Kyrie Irving, I know that is not going to happen. And from the jump, I knew that there was a chance that Brooklyn pulled off the upset. I gave them like a 30% chance. I think that was a little bit too optimistic. I knew from a talent perspective that Brooklyn did not have the necessary pieces to compete with Philadelphia outright, because your big three of Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and James Harden is far better than the big three, than any Brooklyn Nets big three, whether it's McCall Bridges, Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton, whether it's McCall Bridges, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Dorian Finney-Smith. It doesn't matter what three-man combinations. The Sixers are better, but it is the playoffs, and the Nets have shown that they can beat teams that are better than them. They just have not so far. And in each one of these games, they have beaten themselves. Every single one, including this one. So this game, the final score was 102 to 97. It was close at halftime. Okay, Brooklyn was competing very well against the 76ers. However, we cannot discuss this game without mentioning the ridiculous no call on Joel Embiid when he upward kicked Nick Claxton like it was the climax of an anime fight scene. Early in the game, Joel Embiid and Nick Claxton meet one another at the rim. Embiid winds up on the floor. Claxton steps over him. Yeah, little disrespectful, but first of all, he didn't like drag his nuts on Embiid's face. It was Clax stepped over Embiid's legs. Whatever. But this guy, and I'm not, going to call Joel Embiid a dirty player. I think that in an instance like this, it's emotional. Tensions are running high. This is a rivalry. Okay, this is a divisional rivalry. These are two teams that do not like each other. But Embiid, as Claxton was stepping over him, deliberately, intentionally, and unnecessarily tried to kick him not only in the nuts, but he tried to kick him into outer space. He tried to turn Nick Claxton into the Mars rover. And for whatever reason, Embiid was not kicked out of the game for it. Everyone was in agreement. Okay, I saw consensus from the Twitter timeline, which of course is an excellent representation of the general population. I saw consensus from people in the media, even the Inside the TNT crew was like, how he remained in the game after this is beyond me, because it was clearly a flagrant 2. It was unnecessary and intentional. So he should have been gone. Regardless, Embiid still in the game. This was also, like, from an officiating perspective, very inconsistent and just officiated very weirdly. Like, there were certain times where guys would get away with a lot of contact. There was another instance between Embiid and Claxton later in the game where they're going after a loose ball, and Embiid shoves Clax into the second row, and there's a no call, which, again, super odd. That also would have given Embiid, I think, if I remember correctly, there should have been 2 foul calls on him, and I want to say the third quarter that would have put him at, I think, 5 fouls. And then you have however many minutes left in the third, plus the entire fourth quarter for him to get disqualified. So just very odd from top to bottom. And just before we get into the continued oddity from the physical perspective, we got to take a look at this box score because Embiid had his worst game in a while. Okay, finished with just 14 points, had 5 turnovers and 5 personal fouls on 5 of 13 from the field. Only attempted 5 free throws. And the fact that he had this game and the Nets couldn't pull it out was really disheartening because Embiid is an MVP finalist. He's not going to play like this again. This is his probably going to be his only dud for the postseason. And the fact that they couldn't pull a victory out of this, it stings, man. It really stings. And Brooklyn's defense on him wasn't particular. I mean, they did play good defense on Embiid. They mixed up the doubles. They mixed up where the doubles came from, where they doubled him, the amount of time that it took to double him. Like there were delayed double teams, things like that really, threw off Embiid's rhythm. But regardless, the Sixers still got incredible production from Tyrese Maxey, who is an absolute gamer. 25 on 10 of 17. I mean, James Harden played well as well before his ejection, and this was the undeniably the weirdest call in the game, regardless of the Embiid no call, all of the missed fouls. Royce O'Neale is guarding James Harden late in the game. It's an ISO. Embiid is on the bench, if I remember correctly. And Harden, who is on the right wing, starts his move toward the basket. He starts his dribble. He's sizing up Royce O'Neale. Now, he goes and pushes off of Royce O'Neale, but he pushed off and put his fist square in Royce O'Neale's private parts, which, of course, if you extend like that, it is supposed to be an offensive foul. I understand that. I understand why there was a foul called on that play because, Harden is notorious for doing this. There are a lot of guards who are notorious for doing this. It's just you trying to gain a little bit of an edge on the defender. So you extend that arm, create a little bit of space, and it's over. It's either a no call or it's an offensive foul. This, however, was when the referees decided to call the flagrant 2. And they went to the monitor after this happened. Now, by this point, O'Neale is basically in the fetal position, holding his nuts, because anytime you get punched in the nuts, it hurts. Any guy can speak to that from experience. And then Tony Brothers comes over to the scorer's table and says that James Harden is being given a flagrant 2 and he'd been ejected. And I was aghast. My jaw was on the floor because even as a fan of the Brooklyn Nets, even as a staunch 76ers hater, even like as someone who I think, James Harden is a fantastic player, but I'm at the point where I'm calling him Jim. And I watched him assault my boy Royce O'Neale. And I don't think that he should have been given a flagrant 2. He sure as shit should not have been given a flagrant 2. It shouldn't have even have been a flagrant 1. It shouldn't even have been a technical foul. It should have been a common offensive foul. And you keep it moving. The only way that I could see the referees rationalize that is if they deem it as intentional, not because James Harden was trying to hurt Royce O'Neale, but because he intentionally uses this move in an attempt to create space from his defender. But even then, it doesn't hold up to scrutiny because a flagrant 2 is an unnecessary non-basketball play. You can make the argument that that is a non-basketball play, but it's a basketball play. Okay, guys play with their hands all the time. It's just the nature of perimeter defense. So he gets tossed for this, and Joel Embiid has to come back into the game. You still, of course, have Tyrese Maxey, and this is when the Nets have some momentum. They dropped 35 in the third quarter. Okay, they beat Philly's ass in the third. The 3-point shooting was finally coming around. Cameron Johnson, who's played his ass off all series long, had 12 points, 13 points in that quarter. Now, I'm just going to see where exactly. I'm definitely not. Okay, fuck it. So, by this point, Brooklyn is going into the third. They have one more quarter, and they, remain in contention of this upset. And everything falls apart for them in the fourth quarter. Tyrese Maxey is popping off. They had nobody who could check him. They were managing little offense in the fourth quarter. Okay, 5 of 18 overall, 1 of 7 from 3. McCall Bridges shoots just 1 of 5 from the field. Spencer Dinwiddie, Bitcoin Barry, who was playing his best game of the series, finished with 20 tonight, or finished with 20 that night, was just 0 of 2 from the field, missed 2 of his free throws, and committed 2 turnovers. Another thing, Brooklyn gets the ball back. They're down 99-97. They get the ball with 15 seconds left. It was an offensive rebound, or it was a defensive rebound, if I remember correctly. Dinwiddie rushes down court, and instead of holding for the last shot, immediately goes to the rim and gets swatted by Joel Embiid. I don't understand the just lack of awareness sometimes from Spencer Dinwiddie. I think that he is a fantastic player, undeniably flawed. But this guy averaged 9 assists when he came over from Brooklyn. Like, he's a smart player. He is a game manager. He's a very solid game manager. I don't know what possessed him to not hold for the final shot. Because even me, if I'm looking at this, what I would do as a coach in this situation, I'm generally like very conservative with a lot of things. You know, if I'm down by 2, I'm not necessarily looking to shoot a 3 at the buzzer. But in this instance, I would. I would have, if I were Jacques Vaughn, I would have wanted Dinwiddie to hold for the final shot, get the ball into McCall Bridges' hands, because I don't want to give Philly the ball back at the end of the fourth quarter. I don't want to give Joel Embiid any time to get a shot off. I don't want to give Joel Embiid 5 more minutes in overtime to, put the team on his back. But even then, that's another thing, because he had 5 fouls at this point, Joel Embiid did. And there was really no effort to put him in a position to get his 6th foul. Now, I know that it's way more difficult to say than it is to do, because Joel Embiid is an elite defender who can defend without fouling. But you have to apply pressure on the defense, which is something that I felt they didn't do enough of in Game 2. They were much more conscious about their attacks on the basket. They were much more aware of getting Philly's defense to move around, like actually rotate from side to side and force the help to come from different directions. And then it all just broke down on that final play. And the nail in the coffin, literally and figuratively, the nail in the coffin. Clax had been ejected by this point, which I think is another point where the refs actually fucking lost it, because he dunks on Joel Embiid, right? A very strong finish over a guy who's bigger than him and who is at the same level as Clax defensively. And he gets ejected for taunting. He had already picked up 1 technical foul. So you might say, the cynicism in me is like, if you're Nick Claxton, you have to know that you already have 1 technical foul. But all he did was look at Joel Embiid and flex. That was all he did. And the referees tossed him for it. Clax had 18 points at this juncture, and he gets tossed over a soft technical foul call. One that, didn't have to be a tech at all. I mean, I would say call it a delay of game, but I don't know if that is also technically a technical foul and would have gotten him tossed, but it was just very soft officiating from the referees in that regard. And if you're not going to let these guys be expressive and emotive at this point in the game, like there is a palpable amount of tension. You have Brooklyn, a desperate basketball team who's clinging to the last hair of hope that they have against this dominant Sixers team. And even Philly is feeling the heat, because while they have the season edge against Brooklyn, they cannot sleep against this team, okay? Because this team is a good team. And if you're not going to let these guys, be a little not like showboaty, but if you want to take like the edge off the game, now is not the time to do it. Don't penalize Nick Claxton for taunting late in the fourth quarter when he has every right to, do a little bit of a flex. That was a grown move. That was a grown man's move. that he did on Joel Embiid. Ooh, pardon me. So just all around goofiness from the officials. And of course, I can't finish this little rant without the final fucking play of the game where Royce O'Neale throws away the basketball on what would have been the potential game tying shot. Now, of course, Brooklyn does not lose the game on this play because they were getting their shit kicked in all fourth quarter long. They got outscored by 11 points in the fourth quarter. After a dominant third, they lost focus. It's simple as that. So, did Royce O'Neale lose the game for them? No. But I am a little concerned as I'm not really concerned. I'm just more so intrigued as to why you would have Royce O'Neale rebounding or inbounding in that scenario. I understand that, Brooklyn does have a handful of guys who can facilitate every now and then, but just from like a coaching perspective, this is the final play of the game. We all know that if the ball gets inbound, it's going to Mikal Bridges. So you have Royce O'Neale. Spencer Dinwiddie is probably who I would have had inbound because he's a far better passer than Royce O'Neale is. He's a better decision maker because that's his fucking job. I mean, Spence also had 7 assists this game to only 3 turnovers, so a decent ratio. It was just mind-boggling to me that you would have, Royce O'Neale inbound over Spencer Dinwiddie, but I think maybe I'm reading too much into the situation. All things considered, regardless of who you have inbounding, it doesn't change the fact that you're trying to get Mikal Bridges the ball, and it doesn't change the fact that he may or may not have made that shot, but it's still it's crushing. It's more crushing than anything else as, a fan and obviously as a player or a coach to lose, but to lose a close game, to lose a one possession game and not even get a shot off. That is the most crushing aspect of this. But still, that does not change the fact that this game was drunk. This game was chaotic. The officials were all over the place. There was definitely a little bit of weirdness ever since what happened with Draymond Green and Domantas Sabonis. The games are undeniably going to be officiated more strictly in that regard. And I'm not surprised to have seen quote unquote softer officiating, but also all of that goes out the window when Embiid again tries to fight club Nick Claxton from below. It's just super odd. Anyway, yeah, it's not looking good for the Brooklyn Nets, but I just wanted to I really just wanted to address this because it was ultimately at the end of the day it was content. And goddamn. That was playoff basketball to a T. I just wish that it had, played out better for me. But, shout out to the Sixers. Shout out to Tyrese Maxey as well. That kid is he's a monster. Straight up. And yeah, shout out to Doc Rivers as well. Undeniably has been out coaching Jacques Vaughn this entire series thus far. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just wrap it up. A quote unquote quick video for me. I'm already at fucking 19 minutes. So yeah, everything I'm associated with is down in the description box below. Follow me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Of course, like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel as well. The Hedging Screens podcast is linked down there below. That's on every podcasting platform. So give that a listen. Engage with it as well. Tell a friend about it if you enjoy any of the episodes. And I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one.